All right, let's get right into it. We're going to break down some really fascinating research that uncovers this subtle, almost invisible force at play in our workplaces. It's all about a hidden bias that shapes who we see as a true star performer. And honestly, it might just change the way you look at top talent forever.
And it really all boils down to this one big question. We all say we value merit, we value performance, so why is there this gap? Why are women who are objectively crushing it at their jobs so often overlooked for that coveted star status? We're about to get to the bottom of that puzzle.
So, here's our roadmap. First, we'll lay out the problem, that gender gap. Then we'll dive into the psychology of how our brains even create the idea of a star. Next up, we'll reveal the study's core finding, a bias they call think star, think men. We'll also see how our work environment can make this bias even worse. And then, the important part, we'll talk about real strategies to fight it and what you can do.
Okay, section 1. Let's talk about this gap. This isn't just a feeling people have, or a few stories here and there. It's a real, documented thing that researchers have seen for years. The real mystery has always been why it happens.
Just look at this number, 12%. It really says it all, doesn't it? This comes from the research, and it shows that even at the absolute highest levels of achievement, women get only 12% of the most prestigious research awards. We're talking about people with similar qualifications, similar output. The issue isn't capability, it's recognition. That's the gap we're trying to explain.
So how does a gap like this even form? Well, to get it, you have to understand a little shortcut our brains use constantly. We all have these mental blueprints for just about everything. What a leader looks like, what an artist looks like, and as this study found, what a star performer looks like. These shortcuts are super useful, but they're also where our hidden biases love to hide. And just so we're all on the same page, here's the formal definition the researchers used. A star isn't just someone who has a good year. They are people who are perceived as having these rare qualities that lead to amazing results, over and over again. And that word perceived is everything. It's not just about the numbers on a spreadsheet, it's about our interpretation of the person.
And this brings us to the big concept, implicit star performance theories, or ISPTs. It sounds kind of technical, I know, but it's just the official name for that mental blueprint we were just talking about. It's that shared, unconscious checklist of traits we automatically look for when we're trying to spot a star. And because it's unconscious, we often have no idea it's guiding our judgment.
So what's actually in this blueprint? The researchers did a deep dive and found that these 6 traits pop up again and again. People see stars as driven and tenacious. They've got that grit. They're brilliant and their work is extraordinary. But it's not just that. They're also relational and fascinating. They connect with people. They have a kind of charisma. This is basically the prototype of a star that most of us carry around in our heads.
And now we get to the heart of it. Once the researchers mapped out this blueprint, they could ask the critical question, is this blueprint gendered? What they found is a total game changer for understanding inequality at work.
They diagnosed the problem as the think star, think men phenomenon. It's this powerful, automatic association in our minds where the traits we admire in a star overlap a lot with the traits we stereotypically associate with men. This is the same kind of bias that led to the think manager, think male discovery decades ago. It feels like we're dealing with a new version of a very old problem.
And this is where it gets really disruptive. The study points out that this finding challenges the assumption that outstanding performance can automatically overcome gender biases. We all love the idea of a true meritocracy, right? That if you're good enough, your talent will just shine through and bias won't matter. But this research says, not so fast. Even for the absolute best performers, this deep-seated bias is still a major hurdle.
Okay, if you're a data person, check this out. This is the proof in black and white. The researchers measured the similarity score between star traits and gender stereotypes. The link between star performer and men got a score of 0.92. On a scale to 1, that's an extremely high correlation. And the link with women? Just 0.57. The data could not be clearer. Our mental image of a star looks a whole lot more like a man. But it gets even more interesting. This bias isn't some constant, unchanging force. Think of it like a flame. It can burn a lot brighter or a little dimmer, depending on the environment you're in.
So for instance, the study found that in male-dominated industries like tech or engineering, that think star, think men link is way stronger. The bias gets amplified. Now, in female-dominated fields, the bias is weaker, but, and this is a really important catch, it's still there. This just shows how our surroundings constantly reinforce these mental shortcuts.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, I get it. But surely this all goes away when you're talking about the absolute best of the best, right? A star is a star. Well, that's exactly what the researchers wanted to know, and the answer they found is pretty shocking.
Look at this chart. It shows the masculinity rating of traits we associate with different levels of performance. And the wild part is, the prototype for a star performer, the top 1%, is actually seen as having more masculine traits than a very good employee. Just let that sink in. As we go from good to great, our mental blueprint actually becomes more masculine, making that target even harder for women to hit. It's so counterintuitive.
So the evidence is pretty overwhelming, but the goal here isn't to just leave us feeling down about it. It's to give us the tools to start fixing things. The first step is what we're doing right now, seeing the biased blueprint. The next step is to start rewriting it.
If you're a leader or in HR, this is for you. It means you have to be actively thinking about this bias during every single talent decision. But it's more than that. It means training people to stop using vague feedback like lacks gravitas or needs more executive presence. So often, those phrases are just code for doesn't act like the men I'm used to, and they unfairly penalize women who lead differently but just as well.
And for the rest of us as colleagues and allies, the work really starts with just admitting, yeah, this bias probably exists in my own head too. From there, we can start taking responsibility. Maybe that means you go out of your way to see and talk about the accomplishments of your female colleagues. A huge strategy is to just change the conversation, to champion the idea that success in any job requires a mix of skills, both assertive and empathetic, analytical and collaborative. That helps everyone's idea of a star get a little bit bigger. And finally, for the high-performing women who are navigating this every single day. Look, let's be crystal clear. The burden of fixing a bias system should never fall on the people it's hurting. But these are strategies that can help fight back. Building strong networks isn't just about making friends, it's about making your incredible work visible. And seeking out sponsors, not just mentors, but people who will use their influence to fight for you in rooms you're not in, that is absolutely critical. These are tools to combat the invisibility that this bias creates.
So where does all of this leave us? We've seen the proof of a star performer gender gap. We've uncovered the hidden mental blueprint that drives it, and we've looked at real ways to push back. The final takeaway is that this isn't somebody else's problem to fix. It's a process that's happening inside all of our heads.
And that brings us to the final, most important question. The think star, think men bias works in the dark, quietly shaping huge decisions. But now you can see it. You know what the blueprint looks like. So the question is, what are you going to do about it? How will you help redraw that blueprint on your team, in your company, in your industry? Because that's how we actually start to close this gap for good.